Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Caseware webinar. As you can see there, we are looking at work program tailoring today. This is an intermediate level webinar. Actually, I should say it's work program tailoring in Cloud Audit, our Cloud Audit solution. This is an intermediate level webinar, so it does assume some prior experience and knowledge of the Cloud Audit platform. If we just jump to the next slide, we've got Anthony Launchby with us today, who is, as of now, our manager for the professional services team, but also an audit subject matter expert. And Tony's going to be taking you through the content today. We're going to be using the UK company audit iteration of the Cloud Audit Mercia platform. My name's Tom Jeffrey. I'm the Senior Education and Media Technician for Caseware UK, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on the session, making sure it will run smoothly. Also monitoring your questions, so as you send those in via the Q&A option there, you can see on the screen, then we'll try and cover as many of those as we can live. Whatever we don't cover live, we'll get back to you directly afterwards. We'll also put the questions into a Q&A document. We're recording the session, so the recording is going to go onto the YouTube channel and also onto our knowledge base, and the Q&A document will accompany that recording. So that's the housekeeping covered. We're going to jump to the agenda next, and I'll hand over to Tony and we'll get started.
Thank you very much, Tom. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for taking the time out today to join this webinar. Just a quick caveat before we get on. I've got a new mic set up in our lovely new AV room. If anyone has any difficulties hearing me at all during the webinar, can you throw something in the chat and let Tom know so he can give me the appropriate nudge to try and sort my mic out. Right, so the agenda of what we're going to be looking at today, it is in cloud, as Tom mentioned. We're going to be looking at just an overview of the work programs. There's a fair few things that have changed in there lately, so hopefully you've been all taking advantage of the new ART tables, the audit response tables, and a few extra bits of functionality that have been built in. If you haven't seen those yet because you haven't updated your templates, then I'll give you a bit of insight how those work and where they're going to flag up areas within the work programs. But yeah, looking at those areas on the left-hand side, what I'd ask is feel free to jump in with any questions you've got throughout the webinar. Again, try and keep it on track to obviously what we're showing so we can keep it on the same screen. Any other questions that don't flow with the content, we'll make sure we cover at the end, as Tom mentioned. Or if not, we'll add those into a Q&A document at the end and make it available on our knowledge base. So let's go through and jump into straight into a cloud file. So bear with me whilst I just load up my files. Here we go. So in here, I've got, hopefully you can all see my screen. If you should be seeing the Caseware Cloud on there. Perfect, thanks Tom. With our work program tailoring engagement. Okay, so this is a file that we set up just to go through and demonstrate a few areas to you. There's quite a bit of the planning completed in here, so we can go off on a few tangents if you want to see how other areas work. But again, let us know in the question field. So work program tailoring then. I'll leave these two tabs open. If you're wondering why, I've got a document here that I want to run through with you, a PMSD document, and there's a couple of other bits on the other one as well. So I'll keep those three screens open as we go through. So first things first, this is the new document. Hopefully you've all been seeing it at the top of your documents manager. It's a partner manager summary. It's the first iteration of the document, and it's really there designed to give you some useful high-level information about areas such as sign-offs, issues. It provides you a lovely little option to actually filter through all your issues. So if you go to this screen up here, you just see everyone's, don't you? Whereas if you go to the PMSD, there's a nice little selection in there. So you can just see your issues as the manager or partner or whatever your role may be within the audit. So we will be jumping back to this. Now, what we will also be looking at is we will be looking at some of the planning documents, because this B40 audit program required actually does feed through elements into the work program. So we need to be aware of those. We also have some areas fed through from the risk report as well. One of the big changes at the recent update was that the assertions are now populated within the risk report, and they drive into the B40, and then from the B40 that drives into the work programs. Whereas on the original templates when most users started off with, they set the assertions in the risk area and also duplicated that process effectively within the B40. So we will be jumping through a couple of these documents as well as we go through. scanning down the work program section, though, there's already some work, as I mentioned, that been completed in this file. I'm going to open up the debtors or the income work program so we can just have a quick overview on there. And then what we'll be doing is we'll be going down to the wages and salaries work program because it's nice and clean and there's been no tailoring in this yet. Okay. So first then, let's go into the wages and salaries. Let's have a look at it nice and clean, and then we'll go through and go to a bit more depth within the example for income. Okay, so that loading bar at the top, this is this linkage now through into your risk report. Okay, it isn't just the information from the risk report, but we can see that spectrum of risk that we've applied to each assertion level, which is controlled within the risk and controls, which I will just jump into here for you, just to show any newer users where that's populating from. So risk and controls, assessment, and if I go down to wages and salaries here, or you can see there's their spectrum of risk, the appropriate assertions selected, and this is the information over here that's feeding into my wage and salaries work program up here. Now, that's not where we finish with the ART table though, okay? Because what you'll need to do when you set these up is actually part of the planning process is to say, okay, well, when we're looking at completeness, accuracy, and occurrence, what types of procedures do we want to build in to cover those assertions within our work programs? So at this stage here, it will be a member of the audit team that goes through and says, okay, well, we definitely want to be looking at tested detail here. We're also going to be looking at analytical procedures and tested details for accuracy, and then feeding that across the line. Now, when you tick those boxes, you're going to get this little warning message up. Don't worry about that. That's the system doing exactly what it should be doing, which is telling me that I haven't set up any procedures yet, which, as I mentioned to you, is a completely blank document. So we should be expecting to see them at this stage. Okay. So you can build in additional comments as well. Once you set this up, say the manager maybe, you will click on the lock and sign off. And this will say that, okay, you've reviewed it and you've locked it down. What you also need to do at this stage is sign it off over here. If you don't sign it off over here, when you go to the review tools and turn the review tools on, what it will do is it will say that that procedure is outstanding. Can you see that red cross there, missing sign off? So it doesn't just need this sign off down the bottom left. It also needs us to do this as well. Okay. Now, scrolling down then, we've got risks identified, audit approach. Well, the audit approach is populated by the B40. So if anyone doesn't know where to go for this, if you go to the B40, you look at wage and salary section, there is notes on your approach and how you're going to be tackling this work program and so on. And that's the same as we go through for your required audit work programs. This is again triggered by the B40. So when you first open this up, if you don't see anything here, it's probably because we need to do some work on the B40. So I was going to go back to this risks one and I'm going to scroll. Actually, we won't scroll. We'll use the search and open up the B40. I won't navigate all the way down. We'll use the document map and you'll see, there we go, wages and salaries. And that's where it's got that tester detail. So this tester detail here is flowing through to the work programs and populating here. So effectively, when you get to the work programs, you've got a little bit of work to do up here on the ART table. You need to make sure that obviously the approach is put down of how we should be handling the errors. And also you need to be making sure that we're linking to the correct areas and activating tested detail and analytical procedures. Now, that's going to cause me an issue though, because I said up here, I want analytical procedures. So this is going to give me a warning, but it hasn't actually given me a section to build those in. So just quickly jumping back, I'm going to go through here and say, okay, I want analytical procedures as well. I'm going to go back to my wages and salary. You can see it automatically updates. And then if I go to my document map, you'll see that I've got analytical procedures and test the detail. Okay. This is going to be the first stage of you setting your work programs up. Once you get through to this stage, obviously go through and have a look at the general mandatory tests. Most of these are matter of fact, okay, lead sheets and reconciliations and so on. What you will notice though is the response types have all been updated. Previously, what we did within our old iteration of the cloud audit templates was we gave you a text field, and on that text field you can put the results in, put as much detail as you need to. Whereas what we've done now is updated that to 3 options: completed, completed with exceptions, and unable to complete. Now, these 2 here at the end, these actually trigger another element of the PMSD. So if any of your staff or colleagues went through and selected the wrong one, or perhaps it's not the wrong one, it's actually appropriate, it's completed with exceptions, and the exceptions are, and then you've got your work done field here to put those exceptions in. Well, this will trigger an error on the PMSD. So within the PMSD here, I'll just jump back to this tab. If that was a bit quick for anyone, put something in the chat field and I'll go back and show you exactly where this is populating from. When this loads, and apologies for today, I'm on a training server, so we've got development work continually happening on our servers. This will load with any responses from those work programs that are deemed to be non-optimal, okay? So this response here, completed, is optimal. Completed with exceptions and unable to complete is non-optimal. And effectively, we should be asking the question of why. Why have we got a procedure there that we can't do? Why was it unable to complete? So I think that's good. The linkages there between the work programs and the reporting tools now have been really enhanced to make sure that that's nice and clear, that if anyone does select these two responses and that is non-optimal, we can at least track that and make sure that that additional work is being carried out. Okay, so you can still put as much detail in these fields as you want to and expand these out, but we've updated the response types to make sure that we can populate that new document, the PMSD, so you can get more value within your audit engagements. Okay, so one of the things over here, what you can see on the screen is I've got my little head over here, and that's saying I signed it off. So every time I tick one of these boxes, it will automatically sign the procedure off for me. So we took feedback from clients who didn't want to have two ticks for marking things as completed and sign off. They wanted that sign off to be applied as and when the procedure was completed. So that's what we implemented. The only thing with that is when you clear them, it doesn't clear your sign off. So what you need to do is two steps, which is to go over here and actually to remove your sign off as well by just hovering over your head and clicking on the remove sign off option. Okay. Now, I'm not going to work through all these and complete them with you on the webinar because I'm sure you're not interested to see me tick a few boxes, and you definitely don't want to see my typing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize the general mandatory tests, and let's talk about how we can go through and start populating the standard procedures that live within this document that are provided by Mercia. Now, when you come into these work programs, the first thing is the guidance. This section is required as per the B40. Use the visibility settings to show the required procedure section. Now, that's very good guidance. You've also got some guidance over here, though, up on the top. This guidance here starts off with the standard Mercia guidance, okay? And absolutely, we should all be paying attention to that. But you've got some further guidance down here at the bottom. That further guidance tells us what we should be doing and the order of what we should be doing things in to make sure we get the most efficiencies from Caseware system. Okay, so do follow on from this. Effectively, what it's saying is for me to go through and populate areas like analytical procedures or tester detail and to take advantage of Mercia's bespoke content or default content. What I need to do is go to this button up here, the 3.more action button, which is right near the assertions button. Okay. From there, what you do is you select the hidden items, and then you're going to see lots of content pop up on the screen. Now, it will show you all areas that aren't relevant. So it has shown me tester controls. I'm not doing any tester controls, so I'm just going to minimize this down. It does tell me that it's not required, but again, I don't really want to see it at this point, so I'm just going to minimize it. That's the same for non-audit services, and that's going to leave me down on my analytical procedures. So when we look at these, then you've got lots of procedures here, and these are just the standard Mercia content. Now, a nice sign that we know this isn't populating is that see the little dash over here. If it was active, it would have a procedure number on there. Okay. Also, on the right hand side, you wouldn't have an eyeball with a strike through it. That tells me that it's hidden. For me to show it, all you do is you click on the eyeball and say show. There we go. Right, so once you click on the eyeball and you change that setting, that default setting, what you can see is the eye goes red. For many users of Caseware, whether it's accounts or other products, you're used to having overrides with a red indicator. So we stuck along the same lines there to make sure it's nice and visible. Also on the left-hand side now, you can see that procedure numbers there. And at that stage, you can start reading through, obviously making sure we're picking out the relevant procedures here. Review wages and salaries by reference to expectation. Okay, that's going to be covering accuracy, occurrence, classification, and cutoff. If we want more guidance on this particular procedure, there's also a light bulb there. In some cases, it's very light guidance because that's all it needs. In other cases, there's a lot more input there from the development team to expand the guidance that we provide. Okay. If any of you see these guidance and you think actually it'd be helpful to add a little bit more context to it, let us know, because we'll be more than happy to pass those suggestions to the product team. Okay. So I'm going to minimize this guidance here, and I'm just going to minimize that navigation bar on the left-hand side. I'm going to go through and activate this procedure as well. So say show, and again, the same thing. We've got procedure number on the left-hand side, procedure 17, and a red eye on the right-hand side to indicate it's active. So as once you go through your analytical procedures, you then look at your tested detail. Again, using the same options there just to show procedures that you think are going to be relevant throughout the audit. Now, the good thing about these procedures is once you get these set up, okay, make sure you do turn off the hidden items. I don't want anyone thinking, okay, well, this is actually live. I know we're looking for the procedure number and that eyeball, but let's make it a lot easier and just turn off hidden items. So now we can only see those active ones. Let me show the analytical procedures as well. There we go. So when we're on here, you've got the utility in here to be able to expand the text. Okay, it's really nice and easy. All you need to do is go through, so for procedure 16 here, if you wanted to expand this, you can go up to the edit pen at the top here. And then from the edit pen, you'll see that it goes into a light edit mode where we can now start navigating through. Let me get that navigation map back open. There we go. So down to analytical procedures. And at this stage, then I can just double click within the text. And then I can go through and build in additional rows if I want to. So shift and enter will drop lines, and then, okay, additional text. Just as an example. There we go. I can't see the keyboard at the moment. I'm terrible typing because the mic's in the way. So I do apologise for terrible typing and limited examples. But you can see the additional text that's been added in. There are other options up there, as you can see. If you want to go through and put bullets in or numbers, feel free to. Again, anything that makes this clearer for you and your staff, I think is key for us to be adopting. Alignments left and right. There's linkages in here as well if you want to build in linkages to external documentation or content. There's an undo button and redo button. There's an FX button here as well. This can be used to drive balances. So if it was going to be useful for me to see a balance of wages and salaries on here, I could go down here and say, well, okay, well, there's my taxation. Let's go back. Let's go through just typing wages. Ooh, there we go. I can go through at this stage and say, well, okay, we've got wages and salaries here. We've also got some down in the admin. So I can start building these figures in. If that's going to be helpful to be useful to be mindful of, then feel free to add those into your procedures. As and when I update the trial balance, that balance will update. Obviously, I can see materiality over here in the top right-hand corner. So it may be useful to be adding into that automation within procedures. Okay. You can also add in tables from here using the option up the top. Again, if anyone wants any extended guidance on any of these options, let us know. Now, once you tick the box to save it, or use the tick to save it, and then turn off the edit pen, that will then just sit there within the wage and salaries area with that additional text linked through. Now, there is a nice, easy way for us to be able to see when our colleagues or when we have updated any text, okay? Because you've all got access to these review tools at the top. So I can click on review tools. I can then go to toggle, use the toggle to turn that on. And you can see in here that let me move my head again. You've got these different areas. So added predefined content. Well, we can see there, that's the green. We've added in 5. Now, there's been an update to this, and I didn't get it, first of all. I didn't pick up on it. But you can actually use these numbers now to cycle through all the different areas that you've got that added predefined content. Or you could use this one down the bottom to go through, okay, what the ones with all the sign-offs are outstanding. It will start cycling through all the content that have no sign-offs applied. So do click on these numbers here. And it's probably not obvious until someone tells you, but I find this quite useful, especially when you're looking for areas that may still require a sign-off. Okay. However, also what you can see in there is the details. So that's been overridden to exclude. Sorry. Yeah. So the modified, and then you've got the green content there to say, okay, that's content that's been added in. Now, as it stands at the moment, we've got these 3 procedures here for this wage and salaries area. Okay, there's going to be a different impact on roll forward for all these, and it's worth considering. With procedure 20 and procedure 21, okay, well, that's just been, you've just used the standard Mercia content there. You haven't made any modifications. And the impact on year 2 is when you roll forward your file, you won't need to do anything here. These will just, procedure 20 and 21 will just roll forward into the file and be there ready for you to use. Procedure 19 is going to be treated slightly differently. And the reason being is because we've modified that content. So what will happen with the template in year 2 is that when you roll forward your when you roll forward your file, Caseware's template is going to look at your engagement file and say, okay, procedure 19 says this in the template, but you've got this in your file. This is the difference within the text. Do you want to keep it? So it will still roll forward, but you'll need to confirm that change in year 2. Okay, just to make sure that's nice and clear. Now, there's other areas we can build into this as well. So let me just turn off review tools quickly. And let's turn that edit pen back on, because let's go back to the one where, there we go. This additional text one up here, use that as the example. Try and keep the rest of them tied in. I'll just edit these ones. So in this one, then what I've got is the 3 dot more actions button. And on there, I can add the procedure. Okay, so adding the procedure, we'll just build in a procedure underneath it, a blank procedure into that file. So underneath that, then you can see, I know it jumped up a little bit there. I've now got a blank new procedure 17. Now, this is completely my ownership, this procedure. And what I mean by that is I created it, so I've got full rights to be able to go on there and delete it. If you look at any of the content from Mercia that we activated, or I just activated a minute ago, you'll see that you don't get that ability to go through and delete content that's been made available from the resource library there. Okay, so you don't need to worry about your staff accidentally modifying or changing that content. However, any bespoke content, they have got the access right to be able to go through and delete as editors within the Audit system. Okay, so again, just so you're aware of that side. Now, when you set these up, you can select 2nd level procedures. And then from a 2nd level procedure, you can select a 3rd level procedure. So you can really bulk these out if you need to be really specific in areas that you're auditing. Again, updating the text on here is just a simple case of clicking in the fields and using the tools there to be able to update that to what you want. Okay. If you didn't mean to put a 3rd level procedure in there, but you just wanted another 2nd level procedure, you can then go through and delete the 3rd level procedure. You'll confirm that deletion, and then you'll go back to your procedure 17 and just add in another 2nd level one, and that will give me my A and B. Okay, and then if I wanted the 3rd level procedure there, then again it's just a case of building in the ones that are relevant. When you build them in, they copy the same settings as the procedures above. We don't need to adopt these. However, these are what are going to trigger those optimal answers or non-optimal answers within that PMSD document. So although what you could do is you could go to the 3 dot more action button and you can go to settings and you could change this setup, I would recommend you keep it as it is, because at least that way we know that they're being added into that PMSD report and there's nothing we're going to be missing that may be non-optimal. However, if it's just a case of, well, actually for this example, that isn't useful, there's no real value there for you, and you do want to change the settings, you've got various options in here for you to be able to check. Okay, so allow sign-offs, allow input notes in procedures that will allow you to build in text areas underneath, allow multiple rows. That's for when we're using things like pick lists with multiple options. With the options, you can edit them, edit them to be exactly what you want. So rather than yes, no, you can update those to whatever your preferences. And when you set them up, this is when you can say, well, that's a non-optimal, that's a non-optimal. So if either of these are selected, that will automatically go through and populate that PMSD report still. Okay. So there's lots we can do on here. I would recommend sticking to the checklist settings, so not going this far. However, if you've got a case where you think, okay, the standard procedure levels aren't really fitting exactly what you want to create, if you're not confident changing those yourself, please reach out to us, either our support team or either myself or Tom in training. Be more than happy to talk you through exactly what these do and how they will impact your file. Okay, so there's editing options there. Once you set your custom procedures up, what you'll see is that I can't select assertions for the sub-levels, but I can go to procedure 17 and say, well, actually, this covers completeness and accuracy. and I can go through and select those there. Or okay, actually no, it's not. It's accuracy and cutoff, and you can modify those here. So it makes it nice and easy for you to be able to obviously select the assertions. And this is important, okay, because what's probably going to happen is you're going to have a risk that you've identified. You're going to be designing bespoke procedures to mitigate that risk. And up here on your ART table, you're going to say, well, we've got these key areas of completeness and cutoff, and we want tested details to look at these areas. Now, unless we assign those assertions to the procedure, it's not going to impact what we see here, okay? So do make sure when we're setting up custom procedures, here we go, back down we go, and didn't go far enough. Make sure that you are selecting the assertions here to make sure we're using the most out of the ART table and so on. Okay. I just want to pause there for a moment and just see if there's any questions at that stage before I go too much further on. So Tom, are there any questions that would be useful to raise at this point?
Thanks, Tony. We have got a couple, but we may need to revisit some topics perhaps after the webinar and get some more information. But are these features to change procedures only in the company's pack? Academy's pack is behind on these features. Is that correct?
Sorry, I was just looking for the mute button. I've got one on the mic. I must use this instead. Yeah, you can absolutely do this on the academies. What I'd say with the academies is you've got two routes you can go. Now, I'm looking at customizing procedures here, okay? And this is really useful for a company audit file, which is a specific industry where you're going to need to look at it independently. When you're looking at academies, well, I'd probably say for you not to do this on a file-by-file basis because it's definitely not the most efficient. When you're setting up those academies, there's going to be a lot of similarity and consistency in the way you set up these work programs and the planning work you do and the risk assessment we do. So rather than doing this in a individual engagement level, what I'd suggest you do, not everyone will have set the availability for this, unfortunately. However, at least it allows you to start that conversation at your firm. From the three bar menu button at the top, if I go down to settings here, this takes me into the platform settings. And then from the platform settings here, I can go down to my audit templates. So my Audit Mercia UK, and I can click on Manage Template here. And what this will allow me to do is create a custom template of this application. And with that, what I can do is I can build in my own procedures that I know are going to be relevant to that academy. And they're going to be relevant to most of the academies I work on. So I can build those in automatically here. It's not loading up as quickly as I like it. So I might jump back to this in a moment, but effectively that's the route I would suggest you do for academies. Let me just try another template quickly just to make sure. Again, with that caveat of earlier of being on a training server. There we go. This is what I was expecting to pop up. And this is what will pop up for your academies. You can see there's draft versions, but effectively I can create a draft or open a draft if it's already been created. And I can go into the work programs in those areas and update those as well. Now, there is further updates expected out for academies, charities as well within the platform. There's lots of work the development team are doing across the whole template range in the cloud. So there are some inconsistencies with the development so far, I think, within the assurance template. But most of the other templates should be in line now with the ART tables and have the same customization options. If there's an area that you've noticed on this webinar that you don't have access to your file, though, put it in the chat field. And Tom and I are going to have a chat with the product team straight after and obviously champion that cause and get you the answer of when it will be updated so you know when you can use it. But for academies wise, I would suggest you go into the template and have a look at setting up the work programs in here, because you can go into these areas. I can go into the intangible fixed assets and I can build in any bespoke procedures here at the template level, which just means they're going to automatically be available in every single academy file you create. There is another option as well. I'm going to skip that one just now because just mindful of the time. So I won't go all in detail, too far detail in it, but just quickly as an overview. And if we've got more time at the end of the webinar, I'll definitely come back and show you. If I go to Audit Mercia UK, and if I go to create a file, okay, what you've got now and what all of you should have through most of the templates, I'm pretty sure it's the assurance one that doesn't have this yet, is entity for source engagement. This is another really good idea for the adoption for the Academy files, because what you can do is you can create one Academy file, standard Academy file. You can go through and complete the standard areas of planning and the field work for that, again, that work program tailoring, and you can set that up within one file. Then when you go through to create another file, you can then select that file that you've already pre-built as a starting point for every single Academy that you will be preparing within Caseware Cloud. There's a lot of consistencies in that with Academies, so using either of those options are going to give you a lot more efficiencies when you're creating file, and save your team having to spend time setting up standard procedures, where I'm sure you'd much rather everyone be working on actually thinking about, okay, what should be looking at within the Academy rather than setting the file up, especially for those standard areas. So hopefully we'll come back to this a little bit later if we've got time. If not, I'll put some information in the Q&A document. Both would be very useful for Academies or maybe pension audits or something along those lines. All right, so back in here then, when you look at setting bespoke procedures up or modifying Merciers, that it's going to have that same year 2 situation where we roll forward the file. Any Mercier content that you've modified, Caseware is going to go, okay, you need to check that. Is that still relevant for year 2? And then same with this new procedure here. Okay, just to give you a quick demonstration on that, because I want you to see what it's like in year 2. I know we're not completing any work in here really, and I haven't done a lot of modifications, but at least we can see these ones here. So I'm going to turn these ones off, and I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to go into my company audit. Here we go. So audit Mercier. This list, by the way, hopefully for most people, they're finding it a bit more useful now that they're listing these alphabetically. The rest of the templates will also be having an update, and they'll also be having the same name in the convention. Okay. Apologies for the time being that they're in a bit of an order. I'm sure we prefer them all to be batched together alphabetically, and they will be shortly. Okay. If I go to this section here, and then I go through, okay, I want to roll forward this file to year 2. I find this option the easiest, which is selecting the file, 3-dot button, and then create next period's file. And then we'll just say this is year 2. And at that stage, then you've already got the carry forward data selected. So you just click on save, and then let that roll through. So bear with me a moment on this, and let's just copy over. Whilst that's loading, I'm just going to make sure I'm checking everything off from the agenda. Okay, perfect. I think Tom's going to be surprised. This is going to be one of the first webinars I've run to time. Actually, we'll be running within time rather than overrunning. So I promise everyone will be in on their lunch breaks on time today. Tom, whilst this is loading, were there any other questions that we could explore at all?
I'm just going through. We've got quite a bit of an influx, so unfortunately we're probably not going to be able to cover all of them, but we will get back to you after the session within the next few days. The tick boxes in the summary of proposed audit responses, does Caseware automatically tick those once the procedures have been selected? I'm not sure if that's something that you're able to answer without showing it. It's okay. I've got it in front of me here. So it's the tick boxes in the summary of proposed audit responses. Does Caseware automatically tick those once the procedures have been selected?
So yeah, what we'll do, we'll bring back the example and get it on screen after. You will need to consider those checkboxes as you go through, because Caseware won't automatically select them in all cases. So we'll definitely have a look through those. Again, with the influx of questions, we'll make sure that anything that's not covered in this session is definitely covered in the Q&A document. But we should have a good bit of time at the end of this webinar to have some live questions in there as well. Okay, so we'll definitely make sure that's covered. This is still loading. When you roll forward the file for year 2, it does take a little bit more time, because it's copying from it's checking the template, copying updates from the template, and then comparing that to content within your engagement. So if anyone's not seen this before, the first stage of a year 2 file is checking your documents manager. Do we want all these documents to roll forward into year 2? Okay. You've got this select all option at the top to say, yeah, we want everything to roll forward. I'd probably suggest you have a look at your work program areas, get rid of things like additions, invoices, and bits and pieces first, because if it's not required in year 2, it's just a nice, easy cross, which makes it a lot quicker. That's going to be a lot quicker than deleting them manually if you do select them all. Okay. Now, if I just show my hidden items, and I'll jump down to my work programs. And then down into my wage and salaries. Here we go. Let this load up. So you can see over here then, we can see these warning triangles. When the warning triangle's there, that's saying that you're over auditing. It's not saying you're over auditing, it's saying you could be over auditing. So these are triggered by the procedures that are already living in the document. As soon as you tick the box to say, yeah, that's required, then that warning triangle will go. So again, it knows that at that stage, that's what you want to be doing, building analytical procedures, looking at accuracy. If I now navigate down to my analytical procedures, there we go. When you come in here, can you see you still got these roll forward options? They're over on the right hand side here. Now, for the procedure that was the 15 was just a standard procedure, wasn't it? And I built in that additional row of text there. So all Caseware wants you to confirm here are these amendments. So you can do that one by one, or you can then go through and select the select all option up top right. It's completely up to yourselves. For procedure 16, you don't need to select all the sub procedures you built within there. Okay, those A, B, I, and 2. That well, we know that all forms part of 16. So there's one tick. So don't worry if you do bold those out. You only need to select every single row, thankfully. And that's all you need to do in year 2. Really, is review the content from last year. If you're happy with it, tick it. If you're not happy with it, don't tick it. Actually, that was making me confirm those. I'm gonna go back to the product team on those because that shouldn't have been happening. But leave that with me and I'll add that to the Q&A document as well. It should just be the one selection for that procedure with the sub procedures confirmed within it. And 15 there, just like that. And then that's it, except for this one up here. There's one more in the document which was down in my tester detail, which I did amend as well. So year 2 wise, well, it should be pretty quick really when you roll forward. It's a case of reviewing those changes. They'll be highlighted by the review tools that are embedded within the Word program. And then when you're happy with them, using the option which was here for me to select them all to roll forward. And then you can carry on obviously tailoring it for year 2 for any other amendments that you need to make. So year 2 side on the Word program should be nice and straightforward. The work we put in year 1 will roll forward to year 2. There's going to be certain circumstances where that's not always the case though. And the example would be, say, this procedure 20 that we can see up on the screen here. If in 2023 this was Mercia's standard procedure, okay, and then in 2024 what they do is they've changed this to expand it. What happens is that it will automatically build in the text if we're using the same procedure. So that means you don't need to do any work. Mercia's procedure will automatically update. Now, the time that this will go and be removed is if Mercia completely get rid of this procedure and add something, a new procedure in that replaces this completely. So one is when they update the text. If they update the text, those updated changes will roll forward into year 2. If they say in the next year's SAM that they're not using this anymore and they're building a new procedure and they've deleted procedure 20 within their content, then it will also delete within your content as well. Okay, so that will mean any edits you put with them won't roll forward into year 2. Unfortunately, that's outside of Caseware's hands because we need to be making sure that we're always using the up-to-date Mercia content. And it won't happen very often, but that's the only kind of user case that you're going to see where procedures don't roll forward into year 2. And that is just simply where those procedures are no longer within the Mercia SAM, okay? Which is not very common, so it won't be happening very often. But yeah, everything we edit and change will roll forward. Now, the big area on here as well, which we should be looking at, and I haven't looked at yet, is risks and how we assign those. So within this file here, that there's risk assessment here when we go to risks, but if there are actually risks that are associated with this financial statement area, we should be seeing a bit more information here. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into my income schedule here, and again, I can't see the keyboard past the mouse, and it's a different keyboard than what we're used to. Here we go. Let's open that up. So this is the H work program for our income. Okay, so there's a little bit more completed on this, as you see. So my colleague James has already gone through and signed off the risk assessment. He's selected what types of procedures he wants built in, and as you remember from earlier, there'll be a sign off on the right hand side at the end of this when he has completed it properly. So this one he hasn't, so I could just go through and sign that off. Underneath that, then we've got our general and mandatory tests, And as we scroll down, what we can start seeing then is the additional procedures that James has built in for analytical procedures. Now, with these now, what you'll see on the right-hand side is you'll get this indicator here. So this is the indicator that we've assigned a risk to this procedure. Now, you can assign a risk to as many procedures as is relevant. You can't assign them, though, within the work program currently. Okay, so if anyone was going, okay, we know we've assigned a risk, well, we know there's a risk on file relating to income, so you can go to the risk tab, and this is what you're going to see when there's a lot more detail recorded within these areas. So you'll see all the risks. So we've got an assertion level revenue recognition risk, the financial statement level one, and we've also got credit notes being raised without authorization and looking at the valuation. Over here, what you can see underneath each one of these risks is there's a link to the procedure that these risks are linked to. So if I click on review sales by reference to expectations, that's going to take me down, navigate me through. What it should have done there is navigate me through to that procedure. So let's try this again. Again, there we go. That's what I was expecting it to do. Okay, so when you click on those links, it should take you down exactly where to that link is risk, where the procedure is linked to the risk. Okay, like you can see here, and that'll be the same for each one of these. Now, you still can't link the risk to a procedure here. So these procedures have been linked outside of the work program. So to get this set up and to make sure it's nice and clear where we're dealing with risks within our work programs, first thing is you want to go to your risk and controls area over here. And then from your risks, you can then go down to any of the risks that you can see here. So here's that credit notes being raised without authorization. If you click on the risk title and then scroll down, we'll see there we go. Source reference of risks, audit response. So these areas here are used to go through and link it into work programs and assign it. So let's go through to see what is linked up into revenue recognition. Okay, let's close the financial statement areas ones down. And let's just go to assertion level ones. It's quite a fair few bits in here. Let's see what has he linked it here. No, he hasn't. So what we're going to do is we're going to link this one through for stocks. So when you set these up, okay, so you got audit response, click on the plus icon, and then at that stage we can go down to the stocks work program, and at that point here you can see the checkbox. Now, once you tick this box here, on the left-hand side here, you'll be able to see what the risk is. Now, if I go underneath here, these have got these procedures that are listed already. That shouldn't be there straight away for you because you haven't done that work yet. You've just linked it to the work program. So once you link it to the work program, then you should be seeing this plus mark here, where that's where we can now look at all the procedures within that stocks work program. That was a bit of a glitch there. I will double check to make sure that's an issue because of the service we're working on for this today. But you shouldn't see that when you select it on yours. So at this stage, then I can go to attend stock take and complete attendance program. At that stage, then you can see that procedure being built in here. If I go now through to the stocks work program, there we go. It should be taking us down to where that risk is and flagging it up, which it hasn't done in this case. Well, there we go. Attended stock takes completed attendance. It just didn't take me quite down to where I wanted to see, but it is there, and you can see the link on the right-hand side there to the risk. Okay. To get the summary information on these risks, by the way, all you need to do is click on the risk icon here and it will tell you exactly what the risk is. And if you want to, you can click on it again and it will take you back to that risk report to review all your risks. All right. Be mindful of time here. Just want to see, again, Tom, if there's any questions you think we can get answered within the session. If not, then we'll make sure we do some work after the session to make sure the Q&A document's completed.
I think very quick question I'll ask, maybe you can just signpost where you would go to do it, but after tailoring an audit file, can I copy that work program tailoring to another engagement?
Yeah, okay. Really good question. And currently, no, you can't copy it to another engagement. Okay. There is not an option on here to, like our desktop products will allow you to point to another file and then take that data or the risks that have been set up from another file. You can't do that yet within cloud. I'm sure that's a function and a feature that will be coming, but we can't do that yet. As I mentioned, though, what we can do, if there's procedures that you want to be made available to all of your company audits or all of your academy audits, you can go onto the settings and modify the template to include them. There is also a risk library up here as well. This is very stage one. It's populated by our product team. If you've got suggestions of risks that you'd like to be included on this to make sure you have got easy access, send them over to me, because I'll pass them on to the product team, and they've already expanded this on client requests, so I'm sure they'll be more than happy to do it for your suggestions as well. Stage 2 of the risk library, though, and procedures will be able to have risks and procedures that you can copy over from file to file. It's not there yet, but that will be coming. So for the time being, it will be using the settings down the bottom to modify the template to include those bespoke procedures or risks within multiple files, or using the option up here, which is entity for source engagement. So create one file, build those procedures, risks in that you want as available to all clients, and then you can use that as the base file to create all your audit engagements, and that will copy over those custom procedures you're building into your work programs. Okay. If anyone wants more conversation about that, then again, let Tom know in the chat field, and we can arrange a call after this webinar to discuss that a bit further with you. All right. Let me just pause that and get these slides back for you, Tom.
Thanks, Tony. So yeah, I'll breeze through the wrap up. Apologies if we didn't get back to we didn't respond to your questions on the session. As you can see, we tried to fit in quite a lot of content, so we will get back to you in the next few days, and also publish a Q&A document. So you can continue to use that Q&A option on the toolbar there until we finish the webinar. So please continue to do so if you have anything else you want to pop in there. As you may have done for today, to look at our future sessions, you can go to the resources tab at the top of our website, caseware.com/UK, resources at the top, and then the events section, and you'll see the listings for not just webinars, but all of the events that are coming up. On the next slide, we've just got a bit of signposting for some resources that you may be aware of, which is our LinkedIn page, where we again signpost latest news within the business and upcoming webinars and any resources that we think are perhaps timely. If it's a time of year where a particular resource would be useful for a lot of users, that's Client Services Caseware UK Limited. Also, Client Services Caseware UK Limited is our YouTube channel, and that's where the recording of this session and other sessions will be heading to. And you've also got some quick vid playlists there for particular topics. Knowledge base. We're back to knowledge base. So we had our help site. That's now changed to our new knowledge base. Don't worry if you have any old help site links. They will redirect to the equivalent on my.caseware.com. And that's available for everyone to go to without logging in. It is a global site, so it does have not just UK content, but content from our global offices. If you can filter that, but also it will be automatically filtered for you if you are, for example, a super user that has a login. If you need more information on how to become a super user or someone with a login, you can contact our support team. I think that's the last bit of signposting. So thank you very much for joining us on today's session. We hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. Take care, and we'll see you on the next webinar.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Tom. Cheers. Bye now.